If you spend enough time on the internet, you'll see people cook a steak using almost anything. They'll strap it to an electric car engine, blast it with a flamethrower, or drop 2100-degree molten glass directly onto the raw meat. These stunts look incredible on camera, racking up millions of views. But once the smoke clears, what's left on the cutting board is usually a scorched, ruined mess that belongs in the trash, not on a plate. The absolute worst offenders aren't the industrial lasers, they're normal domestic appliances. Take a premium ribeye, shove it into a microwave, and you trap it in a box specifically designed to excite water molecules. Or try vacuum sealing a cut and running it through a standard dishwashing cycle. You are taking a delicate protein and locking it inside a humid, wet washing machine. These viral gimmicks ignore the basic laws of thermodynamics. They prioritize a fleeting internet spectacle over the science of rendering fat and developing flavor. The reason these methods destroy a good piece of meat comes down to one inescapable variable: trapped surface water. When applying heat to wet beef, water cannot exceed its boiling point. As moisture clings to the exterior, the surface temperature hits 212 degrees and stops dead. You aren't searing, you're boiling. Steam envelops the beef, denaturing muscle fibers into a dense, gray, chewy slab. This brings us to the first law of cooking a great steak. Liquid water is the ultimate enemy of a crispy, flavorful crust. Recognizing this thermal roadblock is the mandatory first step. If you want to escape the gray meat trap, you have to eliminate the moisture. Traditional tools like standard broilers, consumer air fryers, and basic high-heat grills often produce results just as disappointing as a microwave. This illustrates the bullseye effect. Dropping a thick steak over an open flame creates 3 distinct zones: a charred ring, a band of gray meat, and a raw red center. The exterior requires aggressive heat to brown, while the interior needs slow, gentle warming. If you blast the meat with a single, massive heat source, the outside cooks too fast. You end up destroying the internal cellular structure before a proper crust has time to form. Relying on one thermal environment to perform 2 completely opposing thermodynamic tasks guarantees a mediocre bite. Creating a perfect result requires a deliberate thermodynamic shift, decoupling the heat into 2 completely independent stages. Stage 1 is all about the interior. You use low, indirect convection heat, methods like the reverse sear or a sous vide water bath, to gently bring the inside muscle to the exact target temperature without overcooking the edges. Stage 2 is for the exterior. Now that the meat is perfectly warmed and the surface is bone dry, you execute a violent flash sear. You use extreme conduction, dropping the steak onto something like a heavy cast iron skillet. This triggers the Maillard reaction. At 500 degrees, surface amino acids and sugars restructure themselves. They violently bubble and blister, forming a complex golden brown crust. If you perform that first low heat stage using convection over smoldering wood, you add another variable. The smoke deposits a final, distinct chemical layer of flavor onto the fat before the searing even begins. By perfectly decoupling the heat, chefs can chemically hack the Maillard reaction on the surface without compromising the delicate internal muscle fibers. The result is a scientifically perfect steak. It features a flawlessly pink edge-to-edge interior, thoroughly rendered fat, and a dark, brittle crust that snaps when you cut into it. We usually associate that level of perfection with the heavy curtains, white tablecloths, and opulent dining rooms of vintage upscale steakhouses. But looking at the raw origins of the meat, among the butchers processing hanging carcasses, reminds us of what this process really is. Using the proper thermodynamic technique is about respecting the labor and the animal. Achieving that absolute culinary peak does not require a viral internet stunt. You don't need novelty appliances, car engines, or industrial lasers. You just have to meet 3 unyielding requirements: infinite patience for the interior, extreme dryness on the surface, vicious, unapologetic heat for the finish. Mastering the fundamental physics of moisture and heat transfer is the only true way to honor the meat, and the only way to guarantee a flawless bite.